My name is Sophia Nguyen, 32 years old, a software engineer at a tech company in Seattle, Washington. When I decided to buy my first house 2 years ago, I never imagined it would put me in the position of being both a daughter and my parents' landlord. My parents, Michael, 65, and Linda, 61, are retired teachers who had spent nearly their entire lives in the suburbs of Tacoma. But after retiring, they said they wanted a change of pace, to live closer to me and enjoy the energy of the city. I thought, why not? With an annual income of over $160,000, 0 cents, I could handle it. And honestly, it brought me peace of mind knowing my parents wouldn't have to worry about rent or bills in their old age. I'm an only child. They sacrificed so much for me. It was my turn to give back. So I bought a 3-bedroom house in the Capitol Hill neighborhood. Not a mansion, but spacious enough, with a small backyard and a living room large enough for family dinners. The master bedroom was mine, of course. I was the one covering the entire mortgage, utilities, internet, groceries, cleaning services, basically everything. I turned the second room into a home office. Since I worked remotely about 80% of the time, I needed a quiet, tidy space where I could focus. I set it up with 2 large monitors, an ergonomic chair, a soft desk lamp, and a small bookshelf with a few machine learning texts. A little corner of peace in my busy world. The third room was the guest room, with a folding bed, night lamp, and a wooden wardrobe. Sometimes distant relatives would stay there. Most of the time it just sat quietly, waiting to serve its purpose. At first, everything was fine. We had a pretty smooth routine. I worked and paid for everything. My parents woke up early, tended the plants, watched old movies, or occasionally baked. It didn't feel like a burden. Honestly, I was happy. I thought I was creating a healthy, grown-up family life where everyone respected and cared for each other. Until the small things started creeping in, the faint clatter of dishes late at night left unwashed in the sink hinted at their growing comfort in my space. The soft creak of the guest room door, opened without my permission to store their extra belongings, felt like a quiet trespass. A faint coffee stain on my office desk, unnoticed by them, marked the first crack in our harmony. But I'll get to that later. I still remember what Dad said the first day they moved in. "Sweetheart, this place feels like we're staying in a luxury hotel." I laughed. Back then, I thought it was a compliment. I had no idea that a few months later, those guests would start thinking they were the owners. It all started one Sunday afternoon in June 2023. I was reading in my home office when my mom knocked, holding a cup of jasmine tea like she always did. "Sweetie, there's something I'd like to talk about." I put the book down and looked at her. There was something in her expression. Not exactly worried, but not her usual light tone either. "Your sister Emily, remember? She and her husband are having some trouble in Portland. David's company, her husband's had some layoffs, and she's 5 months pregnant." I nodded. I had known Emily was pregnant for a few weeks, but this was the first time anyone mentioned they might come to Seattle. "Okay, so what about it?" I asked, a bit tense. I was thinking maybe they could stay here for a little while, just a few months until David finds another job. I gripped the teacup a little tighter. My heart skipped a beat. "Where exactly were you thinking they'd stay?" "Well, probably the guest room." Mom smiled nervously. "Or if you wouldn't mind rearranging a little." I swallowed hard. "Mom, this is my house, and something this important, you should have asked me first." She paused for a moment. "I just thought, we're family, you understand, right? You've always been so generous, Sophia," she added, her voice soft but probing, as if testing my resolve. "You wouldn't turn away your sister, would you?" she pressed, her eyes narrowing slightly, a subtle challenge that stung. "Sophia, she's carrying your niece or nephew," she said, her tone heavy with expectation, pushing my guilt to the surface. I didn't answer right away. My chest tightened with a swirl of emotions. Sympathy, frustration, and a quiet, growing unease. 2 days later, I got home from work and froze. As soon as I opened the door, Emily and David had arrived. No heads up, no waiting for my approval. Their luggage was stacked right by the entryway. A brand new baby stroller stood in the middle of the living room. David was sprawled out on the couch with a bag of chips, and Emily was chatting happily with my mom in the kitchen like they'd been living here for weeks. I stood there for a few seconds, trying to stay calm. My mom turned and said cheerfully, You're home. Emily just got in this morning. I was going to tell you tonight. Her smile faltered for a moment, betraying a flicker of guilt she quickly masked. We didn't want to stress you out, she added, her voice overly cheerful, dodging accountability. I forced a smile, but didn't say anything. I walked straight up to my room, shut the door behind me, and felt like someone had walked into my house without a key. Since that day, the atmosphere in the house changed drastically. David started taking over the living room TV, and Emily would often sit in the kitchen making video calls to her friends, the speaker blaring through the whole house. Her laughter rang out, oblivious to the way it grated against my fraying nerves. Every time I walked into the kitchen, the fridge looked like it had been raided. The food I'd bought the night before was completely gone. I tried gently bringing it up with my mom. Mom, I think David and Emily should help with the grocery expenses. I can't keep covering everything, she replied with one sentence that caught in my throat. They're going through a rough time. And it's not like you're struggling, Sophia. You've got more than enough, don't you? She added, her tone dismissive, as if my efforts were a given. They're family, Sophia, not tenants, she said sharply, her words slicing through my patience. You're acting like this is a business deal, she snapped, her eyes accusing, as if my boundaries were For the first time in months, I clearly saw the line between helping and being taken advantage of. Saturday night, July 15, 2023, just as I was getting ready for bed, there was a knock on my door. It was Emily. Are you still up? I wanted to ask you something. I opened the door, a bit surprised. She stood there, both hands gently resting on her pregnant belly, her eyes hesitant. I know this is your house, but would you be willing to let me and David have the master bedroom for a while? You could sleep in the office for now. The baby's coming soon, and we really need the space. It's just temporary, Sophia, for the baby's sake, she added, her voice syruply, masking a calculated edge. I stood silent. Every word out of mouth felt like ice water pouring down my back. That room was the only place I could find peace, and now they wanted. I took a deep breath. Emily, I think you're crossing a line. I thought after that conversation, Emily would understand that boundaries weren't optional in this house. But I was naive. Over the next few days, instead of backing off or being more considerate, she began planting little comments, half jokes, half hints, but loud enough to know they weren't accidental. Your master bedroom is really spacious. Even with a crib, it wouldn't feel cramped, huh? For once, while we were all having dinner, she casually said, That big bathtub in your room would be perfect for bathing the baby. The guest room just doesn't get enough sunlight. It's practically made for a family, she added, her smile sharp, as if daring me to object. You don't use all that space anyway, do you? She said, her tone teasing but pointed, testing my silence. Sophia's always so independent, she doesn't need all this room, she said to Mom, her laugh light but cutting, as if I were invisible. I looked at my mom, hoping she would cut in or say something, but she didn't. She just smiled, added some greens to Emily's plate, and changed the subject. I felt like I was living in a play where the other three already had their lines, and I was the only one who didn't get a script. The following Monday, July 24th, 2023, I had to be out all day for a client meeting. Usually I worked from home, but that day I had a big presentation, so I left early. Everything in my room was still in place. I locked the door like I always did, but in my rush, I forgot to slide the extra bolt from the inside. I came home around 6, stunned, and immediately felt something off. The hallway lights were dim, the TV was on in the living room but quieter than usual. A faint scent of lavender air freshener hung in the air, masking something unfamiliar. My favorite scarf, left on the hall table, was carelessly pushed aside, a small but deliberate slight. The faint sound of a lullaby playing from my room sent a chill down my spine, a violation before I even saw it. As I climbed the stairs, I froze halfway up. One of my small dressers was sitting out in the hallway. My heart skipped. My pulse pounded as I rushed to my bedroom door. My hand trembled as I grabbed the knob. It wasn't locked. I pushed it open and I froze. All my bedding was gone. A newborn crib was sitting in the middle of the room, and on the wall were a few ultrasound photos taped up. My vanity had been shoved into the corner. The closet doors were flung wide open, and most of my clothes were no longer on the hangers. Emily was sitting there on my bed. No, on the bed that was mine, folding baby towels. She looked up at me with a calm expression, not surprise, not guilt. "Oh, hey, you're back. I was just finishing up. I thought Mom told you. She said we could move into this room. It just makes things easier with the baby. You can use your office instead. I already started moving your stuff." I could barely speak. I turned and rushed out of the room, heading straight downstairs to find Mom. She was in the kitchen, stirring soup like nothing unusual had happened. "Mom," I said, keeping my voice steady, "you let Emily into my room without asking me." She flinched a little, then quickly put the spoon down. "I meant to tell you, but you were busy today. I just thought since you already have the office and Emily's pregnant, they needed the space more. You're always so busy, Sophia. We didn't want to bother you," she said, her voice tinged with a guilt. "You've let them walk all over me, Mom," I said, my voice trembling with suppressed fury, the betrayal cutting deeper than I expected. I clenched my fists. Shock was quickly turning into anger. "You know, this is my house. Every dollar spent here came from me. I don't want to make a scene, but if everyone keeps acting like I don't exist, I won't stay quiet any longer. You've let them erase me in my own home," I said, my voice steady but heavy with the pain of her complicity. Mom turned away, looking uneasy. "You don't have to do this. We're family. I was just hoping you'd understand just for a while." I didn't answer. I turned away, feeling a wave of emotion I hadn't felt since I bought this house. Betrayal. Emily didn't even need to ask. Someone else had already answered for me. And for the first time in my life, I started to truly understand the phrase, "Unclear boundaries are an invitation for violation." I didn't yell. I didn't slam anything. But the moment I walked out of that room that had been taken from me, I knew one thing. My silence would no longer be mistaken for consent. That night, I slept in the office on a thin mattress laid out on the floor. My beloved ergonomic chair had been shoved into the corner like an afterthought. I tossed and turned all night, not because of back pain, but because of the slow, burning rage eating away at me. The next morning, I walked into the kitchen like a ghost. The family had already eaten breakfast. The plates were neatly stacked on the table, except for one spot, my usual spot, which was completely untouched. No plate, no fork, nothing. Mom glanced at me quickly, then turned back to Emily with a casual voice. "We should probably find a spot to hang the ultrasound picture." I opened the fridge. The chicken I'd bought yesterday was gone. So was the almond milk I drank every morning. In their place were unfamiliar items, some brand of juice I didn't know, gluten-free bread, and a jar of organic almond butter. I got the message. Emily had officially moved in. I stood there, one hand on the fridge door, the other clenched tightly. My knuckles whitened, the silence in the room louder than any argument. The faint hum of the fridge seemed to mock my isolation, amplifying the void where my place should have been. A photo of Emily's ultrasound, taped to the fridge door, felt like a deliberate claim on my space. That night, after eating a cup of instant noodles in the office, I opened my laptop and started typing. I looked up Washington property laws, researched how to evict people who live in your home without a lease. I combed through every clause, every footnote in the state code, not because I wanted a fight, but because I refused to be erased in the very place I built. I drafted 2 sets of documents, official notices requesting them to leave within 30 days, for Emily and David, and one for my parents. I printed them, signed them, and sealed them in clear envelopes. My hands didn't shake once. The next morning, a light rain fell. I sat in my office waiting for the hallway to go quiet. When I stepped into the living room, Emily was watching TV with her feet on the table and a bag of popcorn in hand. David sat next to her, scrolling on his phone like he was waiting for a delayed flight. I didn't say a word. I simply placed the 2 envelopes on the coffee table in front of them. "What's this?" Emily asked, raising an eyebrow. I looked her straight in the eyes. "This is an official notice. You have 30 days to leave my house. If not, I'll proceed with legal action," she scoffed. "Sophia, I'm pregnant." Don't you think you're being a little harsh? I clenched my jaw. What's harsh? It's barging into someone else's private space, living off them without contributing, and showing zero respect. You've taken enough, Emily, I said, my voice steady but edged with finality. This isn't your home to claim, I added, my words a quiet blade slicing through her entitlement. You've made me a stranger here, I said, my voice firm, the weight of my erasure fueling my resolve. Being pregnant doesn't give you the right to wreck someone else's life. She fell silent. David chimed in. Did you even talk to your mom about this? I turned, and right at that moment my mom stepped out from the hallway holding a dish towel. She saw the envelopes on the table, met my eyes, and understood immediately. You're kicking out your own family? I nodded, firm and unflinching. If this family treats me like an outsider, then don't expect to stay here as family. No one said a word. Not a single objection, just silence, tight, sharp, like a wire pulled taut. My mom lowered her head, Emily flushed red, and David slapped his thigh and stormed out of the room. That night, I locked the office door tight and left a third envelope on my parents' table. 30 days. If nothing changes by then, I'll proceed with legal eviction. I sat on the mattress, legs curled to my chest, and felt cold. Not because of the air conditioning, but because of the price of standing up for myself. It wasn't cheap, but it was what needed to be done. I no longer needed them to understand me. I just needed them to know where my boundary was. The next morning, I made coffee earlier than usual. Not because I hadn't slept, but because I knew I was finally doing something I should have done long ago. I stood outside the master bedroom, my old room now labeled Baby Liam in pastel letters, and knocked 3 times. Emily opened the door, hair messy, wearing an oversized nightshirt. Her eyes flicked with confusion when she saw me standing there, holding a thick file folder. "What is it, Sophia?" she asked, still groggy. I extended my hand, cold, unshaken. "This is your official notice. You have 24 hours to leave this house. If not, I'll call the police and file for forced eviction." Merle's mouth dropped. She froze for a few seconds. Then her face started to twitch like she was about to cry. "You're kidding. You're kicking a pregnant woman out of her home." "Not a pregnant woman," I said calmly. "A woman who ignored boundaries and took over someone else's property. You've had months to respect me, and you chose not to," I added, my gaze unyielding, cutting through her feigned shock. "You've turned my home into a battleground," I said, my voice low, the weight of her actions laid bare. "You've left me no choice, Emily," I said, my tone resolute, the finality of my decision echoing in the silence. I turned and walked away, not bothering to listen to the sobs behind me. I was tired of tears being used as a weapon. As I came down the stairs, David burst out of the kitchen like a storm. He still had half a sandwich in his hand. "Are you insane? Emily's pregnant. Do you have no heart?" I set the file down on the table and stared him dead in the eyes. "Yes, she's pregnant, but that doesn't give you the right to steal my bed, eat the groceries I paid for, and erase me from my own home," David growled, then threw the rest of his sandwich onto the floor. "As you call the cops, I swear I'll—" I raised my hand to stop him. "I installed security cameras around the house last week. Every threat you've made is on record." His jaw tightened, a flicker of fear crossing his face. His hands clenched, the sandwich crumbs on the floor a testament to his thwarted bravado. His face went pale. That afternoon, my mom came home from the grocery store. As soon as she stepped through the door, she saw me sitting calmly in the living room with a cup of tea while Emily sat on the stairs, her face buried in her hands, sobbing. She set the grocery bag down and rushed over. "What's going on?" Emily sobbed. "Mom, Sophia gave us 24 hours to leave the house. Talk to her, please. We don't even know where we're going to go." I stood up, calm and steady. "Mom, I've already warned everyone. This isn't about emotions anymore. This is about boundaries. If people keep ignoring me, I will follow the law." My mom walked up and took my hand. "Sophia, don't do this. I'm begging you. You've always been the most generous person I know. Please don't turn this family into enemies." I looked at my mother, the same woman who used to hold me every time I fell as a kid, now standing up for the person who had invaded my space. "Mom, I have been generous for 3 months, but I can't keep sacrificing myself for a family that no longer respects me." You let them erase me in my own home, I said, my voice steady, but heavy with the pain of her complicity. You stood by while they took everything, I said, my eyes locked on hers. The betrayal, a wound laid bare. That night, no one had dinner together. No one spoke. Emily laid on the couch with her arm across her forehead. David slammed the guest room door as I passed by. My mom sat silently in the dining room, staring out the window like she was searching for a reason not to face me. I ate dinner alone in the kitchen, a piece of cold grilled fish and a glass of water. But for the first time in a long while, my mind felt at peace. I used to be afraid of confrontation, but now I was afraid of only one thing: losing myself by staying silent. The next morning, the clock struck 7:00 a.m., August 1, 2023. I had just finished setting the table for breakfast when I heard a loud thud from the stairs. It was David dragging down his suitcase. Emily followed behind him, face flushed and eyes swollen. They didn't say a word. They didn't look at me. I stood by the door, still holding my coffee. My mom came out behind them, her face a complicated blend of emotion. Her hands trembled slightly, clutching the edge of her cardigan, as if bracing for the fracture in our family. As David loaded the bags into the SUV, Emily turned back, her voice trembling. Sophia, you've really changed. I nodded slightly. Yeah, I'd learned how to protect myself from what crosses my boundaries. You'll regret this, she whispered, her eyes flashing with a mix of hurt and defiance. You've torn us apart, she hissed, her voice barely audible, a final jab meant to wound. You've made us outcasts in your world, she added, her voice cracking, a desperate attempt to shift the blame. David's SUV pulled out of the driveway at 4:12 p.m. I know the exact time because I had been standing in the kitchen for almost an hour, not waiting, just making sure it was really over. There was no goodbye hug, no glance back. They left as quietly as they had taken up space in my life, uninvited, unnoticed, and unapologetic. The door shut, and everything sank into a strange kind of silence. No more TV blaring all day, no more crumbs scattered on the couch, no more long calls from Mom echoing through the house like she was their maid. It was just me, Mom, and a space that could finally breathe again. That evening, I didn't eat downstairs. I brought my dinner up to my room, turned on the soft golden light, played a quiet instrumental track. The bedding was in its place. My favorite old photo frame was back on the vanity. My room, my home, and finally, my peace. Around 10:00 p.m., I heard a knock at the door. I didn't rush. I took a deep breath and quietly said, "It's not locked." My mom walked in, moving slowly, holding that old knitted shawl she always worked on during long, thoughtful nights. She sat down on the edge of the bed, silent for a few minutes, as if unsure where to begin. "Really?" I asked, her voice raspy. I looked at her. That familiar face today seemed tired. Not from age, but from the weight of realization. "Not angry, Mom, just disappointed." She nodded, eyes fixed on the floor. "I thought helping one of my children was the right thing to do, but I forgot that when you protect one, you might end up hurting the other." "It didn't say anything," she continued slowly. "I'm sorry for putting so much pressure on you, for not standing by you even when you were the one carrying this entire household. I truly didn't realize things had gone this far." I set the tea tray down on the table and turned to her. "You know, Mom, I never wanted you and Dad to leave. I bought this house partly so you'd have a safe place in your retirement. But if everyone sees me as just a walking wallet, a machine that pays and tolerates, then I'd rather live alone." She stayed quiet. Then after a moment she softly said, "From now on, I won't let that happen again. I let my love for Emily blind me to your pain," she said, tears welling, her vulnerability a bridge to healing. "I should have been your shield, not their excuse," she whispered, her voice raw, a plea for forgiveness woven into her regret. The next morning, as I walked downstairs, something small nearly made me laugh. A handwritten note left on the dining table. In my dad's sloppy handwriting, it read, "Have you had breakfast, sweetheart? Your mom made pancakes. There's orange juice in the fridge." Dad, no explanation was needed. I knew they were trying to change, and I would give them that chance because, deep down, I never wanted to lose my family. Only this time, I would draw my own line. To the day Emily left, I thought everything would end. But it didn't. Everything simply started again, only this time more honestly. More right. I'm not someone who enjoys winning arguments. I never wanted to come out on top against anyone in my family. But eventually, I realized some victories aren't about fighting. They're about keeping yourself from being swallowed by something that no longer feels right. I didn't feel good drafting eviction papers for my pregnant sister. But I knew that if I didn't, I would become someone even I couldn't respect anymore. Respect, like love, can't survive without boundaries. A week later, my mom came into my room one evening carrying an old photo album. We sat on the floor flipping through the pages, me as a little girl in a red t-shirt sitting in her lap, Dad teaching me how to ride a bike under the Washington sun, Emily and me in a Christmas photo when I was 10, grinning beside a paper tree. A faint tear stain marked one page, a silent trace of Mom's regret. The album's worn edges felt heavy with unspoken apologies, a tangible link to the family we were rebuilding. A faded note tucked inside, in Mom's handwriting, read, "Sophia's first bike ride, a reminder of her pride now tinged with remorse." We didn't say much, but the way Mom looked at those photos, the way she gently turned each page like she was afraid of tearing the past, told me everything. She was starting over, just like I was, I softly said. I don't want to be apart from this family. I just don't want anyone in this house to have to trade away their self-respect just to be called family. From now on, no one will have to trade anything, I promise. We'll make this right, Sophia, she whispered, her grip tightening, a vow etched in her words. Your strength taught me what I should have seen, she added, her voice soft but resolute, sealing our new understanding. We'll rebuild this family with respect, she vowed, her eyes meeting mine, a commitment to change. I don't know what the future holds. Maybe Emily will never text me again. Maybe David will always think I was selfish. And maybe someday the three of us will sit down, three people who once hurt each other, and finally understand. But whatever happens, I'll be the one who sets the boundary. Not to build walls, but to leave space for kindness to breathe. Because after everything, I've come to understand something deeply. Family isn't a place where people get to hurt each other without consequence. If it can't heal, it should at least never be the source of deeper wounds. That night, for the first time in weeks, I turned off the light, set down my phone without checking for messages, and didn't toss and turn over the past. I lay still in the dark. No sound, no need to explain. I knew I had to face the hardest thing of all, standing up to control from the people I love most. I would do it again if I had to, because in the end, freedom doesn't begin when we walk away. It begins the moment we dare to stay and say, that's enough. Sophia's story isn't just a family tragedy. It's a powerful reminder that kindness without boundaries becomes an open door to exploitation. In real life, sometimes the people closest to us can hurt us the most, especially if we don't know how to protect ourselves. Speaking up, even when it's hard, is the first step toward reclaiming respect from others and from ourselves, because true family cannot exist without fairness and clear limits. What do you think about Sophia's decision? Would you have done something different in her place? Share your thoughts below. And don't forget to follow the channel for more deep, thought-provoking stories about family, boundaries, and real-life relationships. As I reflected on this journey, I opened my phone and found messages from others who'd heard my story through whispered conversations in Seattle or posts shared online. Sophia, your courage to set boundaries inspired me to stand up to my own family's overreach, one wrote, their words a quiet echo of my own fight. Another shared, your story about the dove in your first home hit me hard. It's like the boundaries I'm learning to rebuild in my life. These voices, raw and heartfelt, reminded me that my struggle resonated beyond these walls, like the gold resin mending the dove's wing in my old house. I read through the comments, each one a spark of connection, proof that truth can break through silence. Have you ever had to draw a line to protect your space or self-respect? Maybe with family, friends, or even yourself? Share your story below. I read every one, because no one should feel erased in their own life.